Welcome to YouTooSpain, broadcasting live on YouTube. On today's show, I'll be talking with our best mate Chris from Upsticks, all about the biggest mistakes people make with timing the application and documents and plans for their Spanish visa. The answers to your questions are all here, and if you're watching the video back after the show, there will be chapter headings along the bottom there, and also there are time codes for the chapter headings in the video description below. So you can easily scroll through and find the exact answers that you need specifically for you. Look out for loads of handy information and lively chat from beginning to end, so you can stick around for the whole thing. Enjoy it, put the kettle on. You're all very welcome to YouTooSpain. Still alive, and let's dance. Groovy baby. Right now, just before we get chatting, don't forget, as usual, to sign up for free to the monthly newsletter from our website, YouTooSpain.com, and enjoy a free account as well, and advice from our lovely friends at Smart Currency Exchange, whom I highly recommend for when you're moving or buying a house in Spain. But do use the link below to get in touch with them. That helps YouTooSpain out, and no extra cost to you. Yes, do you know what? You know exactly what it is, don't you? It's a win-win-win with a cherry on top. So, without, I've got to get rid of my thing on the screen, otherwise that'll stay there forever. So here we go. Without further ado, let's meet my wonderful guest for today. It is, of course, our best mate Chris from Upsticks. Hola, Chris.
Hola. Good morning.
Good morning. How are you doing?
Yes, all good. All good here. It's what's the weather like up your end? Is it a bit blustery? It is here.
It's not actually. The wind has died down. We had wind overnight, but it's looking lovely out there. I can't even see a cloud from this angle. Marvelous.
Brilliant. Excellent.
Lovely. Let's see who we've got on the live chat this morning. Steffi, good morning. And she's got hashtag FOF. Absolutely. Paul Cook and Toasties Van Build. He's paired with your channel. And Anton Kez are paired with your channel as well. So, hola todos. Shake off Freddy Peas and Fluff. BG staying alive. Glory again, or I will survive. Good standard message. I like to see that every Saturday morning. And Kev the Argonaut is there. Hope you aren't too tired after your brilliant gig last night. I'm not too bad, actually. I've had a little square of very strong dark chocolate, so it's kind of eased the tiredness slightly. And I've been having my breakfast recently has been toast with chili jam. So that really kind of opens your eyes in the morning. That's very good. And yes, who else have we got? Paul Cook, streaming both channels, and Michael Arthur, streaming both channels. Question for Chris: do Upsticks cover Mallorca? It's a good one.
Well, that's a good one. For EU, sadly, no, we don't. And for the NRV, we can do, but we don't have someone to attend the Tom of the Way appointment, the registration appointment yet. So we've had two clients go through, but we booked the appointment, but they've had to go themselves, unfortunately, because we don't have an agent on there don't have an appointment specialist to meet them.
But for an extra fee, you could fly over, couldn't you? I'm sure you'd like that.
Do you know what? I nearly did. Rob, our last client, they didn't fall in. I said, do you know what? If I can make it work, I will do, because the flights are quite cheap and I'll get over. I've been to Menorca, believe it or not. Done one there, but yeah, I think we definitely, if we could arrange it, maybe we'll have an extra fee and I'll fly over and do a video.
Yeah, cool. I might even join you. I've never been there before. My mum used to go to Menorca every year for the holidays in September.
Menorca's nice. We did that in winter, but we did. It's like we were talking about I did a bit on my weekly update about it. That once you're living here, traveling in the winter is great because it's quite cheap. Like jumping the flights. I think like the flights to Morocco from Malaga are like 20 quid, and
they're really cheap. Yeah,
we got to Menorca. Don't get me wrong, you're not chasing the sun. You've got to have a jacket. But if you're going on a more of a just have a look around the island sort of trip, I think we got a family of 4 return for like €180. It was crazy.
Nice. All right, must try that then. All right then. Let's get straight. Oh, Mike Ripper, hello, good morning, and good morning to everyone else who's joining us. Got 28 so far. Everybody, get on the live chat and say hello. If you don't know how, then ask in the comments below. And Kev says Menorca is lovely, like Devon and Cornwall, but with sun. Yeah.
He lots of cows and cheese. He's right. I was so shocked with the cheese is amazing in Menorca.
Oh, I'm a cheese fan. Must do that. Okay then, today we're talking about the mistakes that people make when they're trying to time all of the things, especially the timing. This is the important thing. All of the things that you need for your visa application and for your travel plans and for importing your car. Everything's about timing. And also, it's all about, it depends, isn't it, Chris? Let's talk about that.
It is, and this is going to be one of those, I think this is one of those lives where there's probably a lot of non-answers, really, but, it depends. It's horrible. Sometimes when we're doing videos and we can give like set structural answers to how long is that document valid for. We know it's valid for that, but it's like, when should I apply for it? Then that becomes down to the individual, doesn't it? And I think when we discussed this before, it's this kind of trying to understand what your information you're getting from social media, from our platforms, from Facebook, and then applying that correctly to your own personal circumstance. And I spend an awful lot of time saying to people, yeah, what you've seen is correct, but it's correct for that person, maybe not for you. So I suppose it's just a case of highlighting the things that you should have in your timeline, the things you should be aware of, really.
Yeah. And there's some things you can't, when you're talking about timing for individuals, there's some people need proof of unemployment, if they've only just left work, or you might need something anyway, even if you've been out of work or already retired for a couple of years or something, you still need some proof that you're not working for your NLV. And then there's the S1, which doesn't always take an exact amount of time, and then apostilles and certificates as well. Getting your copy of your marriage certificate and things like that are often it can take a different length of time, so you can't timetable it out exactly, can you?
No, exactly. What we tend to do is, and a good structure to start with is to start with your pin in the calendar, which is your desired entry date into Spain. Right, and most people look at the appointment date as the pin in the calendar. And we would always start when we're structuring with the client, having our first discovery call. What is your desired entry date into Spain? And then work backwards from there. And that also allows you to work forward from that point when planning the Spanish side of things. So, which then obviously brings into account the document validity. So you've got, and this is the big it depends, is because you've got your desired entry date into Spain. You've got to remember that the visa is valid for 90 days, okay, for you to enter into Spain. So from that date is when you calculate your appointment date.
Yeah.
And at that point is when you've got to look, maybe then refer to social media or refer to our sources or whoever's managing your visa for you to say, well, how long is it currently taking in this area? So, for example, we saw right at the beginning of the year, visas coming out in 10 days, 2 weeks. Kev, who's watching now, he's came out like quick, the whole family. Now we've seen coming up to summer, the Manchester ones are creeping into a month. Is it going to take a bit longer? Are we going to go to that 2-month period and then go back down in autumn? So that's the first sort of your line in the sand. When you want to come into Spain, what time of the year that you're applying, and when you expect to go for your appointment.
And there are some unexpected things, like we were moving from Ireland. We wanted to take the ferry because we wanted to have our dog with us, so we needed to go by car. We couldn't fly. And we didn't realise, although we had a look at bookings early enough, but we didn't realise that the ferry stopped at the end of October because the sea was too rough to come from Roslao down to Bilbao. So we were very lucky. We managed to get on a ferry in the middle of October. And that meant that our travel date was absolutely fixed because if we didn't get there then, if there was a problem with that ferry, then there's only another 2 ferries and they'd already be booked up. Well, certainly the cabins that can take a dog would be booked up. So we wouldn't have been able to take the dog except somewhere in the hold on the ferry or something. And that wouldn't have been possible. So that would have messed up the whole thing and we would have had to put it back by 6 months.
Yeah, yes, that's something we hear an awful lot, is obviously people moving over and using the ferry services, especially with animals. You have to book it up like months in advance. So we tend to use that ferry. Some people have flexible ferries, but then but then some people don't have the luxury of having a flexible ferry which they can move and actually somewhere to live in the UK after that day, because that's what you've also got is the when obviously you're leaving a property in the UK, not everybody has the possibility of bunking down at a relative or having a temporary accommodation or somewhere to actually have a foot in both countries. So it's I would say that you've got to take your desired entry date into Spain. Obviously we're talking about visas now. EU citizens, it's different because they don't need to do the appointment before you come. And then once you've got that and you've worked out then from there what your appointment date should be at the BLS, if you're getting a visa office, the good news is that at the moment the BLS offices are, once you've finally got through the kerfuffle of their appointment booking system, are offering appointments which are next day. So we don't ever, all the videos, you look back at the videos we've done and it's like, what's going on with the appointments? Me stood outside the consulate in the freezing cold trying to find out. I mean, you wouldn't believe where we are now, where you go on an online system. It takes about 25 minutes, but you can book for the next day. I mean, that's amazing. And from that date, that's when you start working out when you start to order your documents. Because it's very important to explain the documents have to be valid at the date of the appointment. So a lot of people ask us, well, what happens if the documents expire while I'm waiting for my visa? That doesn't matter, because the day that you go for your appointment, the documents rubber stamped as such. So if your document has got a validity of 90 days and you go on day 80 with it, as long as you've got it rubber stamped on that day, if it takes longer than 10 days to get your visa, that's fine.
Cool. Are there problems with things like your medical cover, your healthcare insurance? Does that have to start on the day when you've got your appointment? Does that have to be in date, or can that start on the day that your entry date?
Well, this is another problem, because, and it's all to do with the timing. Because when you start getting into the summer months and you're looking, maybe if you're looking at coming in September, you might be looking at latest going to your appointment in July, because that gives them 8 weeks over summer to get your visa, late June maybe. Then you don't have to have your medical insurance the start date of medical insurance doesn't have to be the date that you go for your appointment. It can post date that to coincide with this target entry date that we spoke about. But so it has to be paid for. You have to have the proof it's paid for. You have to have your certificates. But a lot of companies will only let you pay 60 days in advance.
Okay.
So what happens is people who are going to appointments and planning appointments closer to summer, and this is what we're seeing quite a few circumstances of at the moment, maybe someone's planning to go to an appointment at the end of June to come in mid-September, because the visa they get, even if they get it in August, lasts for 90 days, is having to take out their health insurance from August, because in June you can't pay to start the health insurance in September. So it's a juggle.
Yeah, it's all a juggle. Well,
Yeah.
Kev the Argonaut says, yes, they do pin a date, don't they, Chris? And other idiots come to you and say, we've just bought a house. Can you sort it out for us to be there? Is that what you did, Kev?
No comment. We could be flexible, Kev. You know we could be flexible. It's all cool. It's all cool. We're not going to apply together. Don't worry about it. We can do it.
Yeah. That's the main thing. So let's have some examples of things that have gone wrong. I mean, I think that a lot of what we've been talking about is the is is the is the sort of solutions and trying to get all of the ducks in a row and all of the dates in a row, isn't it? But what's gone wrong for people that you've had experience of?
Yeah, so I've you know what, and you'll be very happy. I could actually write some notes.
You made notes. It's a little scrap of paper. It looks very professional.
Yeah, notes and notes, notes and notes.
Come on
So
then, let's have it.
So I wrote 3 notes for this point because I did read the script. You know, that was I came in early to do that today, so that was good. No, so the first one is the proof of not working. Okay, so you have this. So just to summarize the validity of the documents really quickly is the ACRO criminal records checks now, or criminal records checks from if you need them for other countries, are now valid for 180 days. Okay, so they're not the 90-day rule, it's 180. So that's good because you can get on with that quite early. Medical certificates and marriage certificates are valid for 90 days only, so they have to be issued, and so they have to be issued within 90 days of you going to the appointment. And the financials, we've spoken about the healthcare, but the financials have to be dated as close as possible to the appointment. Okay, it's a little bit of a confusion about, oh, it's as long as it's dated up to 3 months ago, I can bring it. No, we always say if you can get them within 10 days of the appointment, please do. So that's the sort of the overview of the timelines of the documents. But what happens with, so we spoke about health insurance, things like P45s or deregistration of self-employment. Now, as long as you've got the proof of not working at the time of your appointment, okay, i.e. you got your P45 5 days before you go, that's fine. We haven't had any problems or any kickback ever from the consulates saying, oh, you should have had your P45 for a month before you came. You know, as far as they're concerned, and our experience so far is that as long as you've got it in your hand at the appointment, it's a tick in the box, jobs are good. But obviously for people who are ending work close to, because you want to work until you possibly can, get the cash in the bank, but you need to prove you're not working at the appointment. You've already started your document process. The documents have a validity, and then suddenly if there's a spanner in the works with a P45, for example, we had one where a client expected to get the P45 on the very last day of work, checked, and they said, yeah, you'll get it when you finish work. And then what happened was they got it on the last payroll. All right, but it's the payroll after the month that you finish. So and apparently this is for bigger companies is a thing. So what happened there was finish in the middle of the month, expect a P45. No, you'll get it on payroll, but the payroll isn't this month's payroll, it's next month's, because that's when you get paid this month. 6 weeks suddenly until you get the P45.
Oh dear.
Which is a huge chunk into your document validity. That's half of the validity of the medical certificates and stuff. So that's one thing. And the other thing that we have is obviously people who are timing property sales with going to the consulate, because obviously you need somewhere to live, okay, until you go. And if that falls through, because I've heard some really crazy chain stories. In Spain, it doesn't generally happen, but in the UK, there's always a chain, isn't there? People very rarely with a pot of cash and says, "There you go, I'll have your property."
And you can get gazumped quite easily.
Honestly, 4 people down the chain, the solar panels fell off the roof and they didn't get an approval, and suddenly the whole visa's gone. You know, so it's the craziest stories from the property sales, and I'm not too sure how you manage that. I think you've just got to be aware that, you know, if it does happen, your documents will expire. So some people go into the process, and we talk about sort of risk assessment. You know, what happens if, you know, you're going to give up your job, you just got to know when you can get your P45. But what happens if the property sale falls through? Could you continue? Because then we get into those rounds of, if that property sales goes into the following year and you're looking at capital gains, your whole plan goes. whole year, you know.
There's just no. It's just thoughts and prayers. That's all you can do with property sales, and
Yeah, I think so. I think it's just, as you say, risk assessment in terms of who's in the chain. You know, so I've had conversations like that with clients before where we've mentioned property sales and I go, oh, brilliant, yeah, property sales. Okay, then what's the chain of what's it like? And so you might be thinking you're supposed to be helping with a visa, not what's going on that end. But
yeah,
it's always good to risk assess because you say, oh,
yeah.
someone needs a mortgage. There is a possibility if that falls through, what would happen in a month's time if we've got all these documents ordered? At what point do we hold off even, for example, to do translations and apostilles?
Mhm.
So we can get documents on the way if there's an expected sale date. We can say, right, well, let's wait until that date, till we know it's going to happen, to then continue and not spend the money on apostilles and translations. So the financial liability isn't as big.
Your schedule must be a mad thing as well, because you've got to cope with all of these different flexible schedules that people have got, and so it must be very difficult for you to make a plan in the office of who you've got to deal with in 1 week, because some things might have fallen through, documents not come through, and people having to change their appointments.
Yeah, it's kind of, we sort of set reminders. So when I do the first call with clients after we send our Let's Get Started email, we've broken it down a lot more. So I used to send a Let's Get Started email once someone's paid the first part of the fee, which just put the frighteners at people. It was just the worst email. I looked at it and I went, if I got that email, I'd be scared.
Yeah.
I overviewed everything that we were going to do, and it was like, I was like, that's wrong. So we structure it slightly differently now and put it in bite-sized chunks. And so the first email we send to people just is a link to 2 forms, one for us to do their application forms for them, and the other for GDPR. And then after that, we have another call. And at that point, what I do is we set reminders in our CRM system and just go through all of this with the client. So I'll be like, okay, and I start with, what's your target entry date? What date are we going to go for the appointment? This is the date we need to start ordering documents. So we have that structure. And then basically during that structure, while it's being managed, if something changes, we move stuff up and down. So recently I just had to get some new medical certificates done for a client who got put back due to personal circumstances, but was in Spain a second time. So I was like, oh, that's cool. We can get those redated. So that's fine. So a lot of that does go on.
Mike Ripper's saying, we always thought we lived in a desirable area and selling would be easy. Turns out we were wrong. Luckily, we still have another 6 months to sell it. Fingers crossed. That just shows you sometimes it's good to be well in advance of your plans.
Yeah.
And Robbo says, yeah, morning, Robbo. He's just back from a 3-mile walk. There you go. That's handy. It's what I suggest to people is go to some place where the local bakery is 3 miles away. Then you've got a good walk in the morning before you have your breakfast. You can eat it on the way back.
Yeah.
There you go. So any more examples of what can go wrong? Is that have we done the 3 that's on your note list?
Yeah, so it's a P45, the property, and that was it. I had another one else. What did I have my third one? What could go wrong? Oh no, we spoke about I was talking about the travel at the end. So the things like the ferries and stuff like that. Fixed travel dates. This is the third thing, which FTD, which I just wrote down and then realised I didn't understand my own writing. But anyway, fixed travel dates. You said FTD, that's a new one. Fixed travel dates. It's so hard when you've got fixed travel dates. So people say, okay, I've been to my consulate appointment. Do I book a flight now to go to Spain? I'm like, maybe not. Remember, we are in the hands of immigration, which is an exciting roller coaster.
Yeah.
all the time. And really, once you've handed in your visa, your documentation, it could, in theory, take up to 90 days. Sometimes they come out in a week. So having a fixed travel date is quite hard. But then, obviously, as you said, things like the pet transport, not only on a boat if you've got a pet cabin, but actually booking someone to bring your pets over seems to be, you have to book it, a year in advance, because people are so busy at the moment, and it's a
Yeah.
specialist industry. So that's the other thing that I mentioned, probably if you have got fixed travel dates, to make sure that you're organising the Spanish end, because if you have to push the envelope of your visa back when you hit Spain, you've got to hit the ground running, getting your pad on and going to your appointment. It's not a problem, it'll be done. But probably bringing your whole application slightly forward to take that into account.
Yes, true. We're going to be talking about. I've got a vet on next week who's going to be talking about bringing your pets over. But you mentioned transporting your pet over if you go with a pet transport company. The rule for them is that the owner has to pick up the pet within 5 days of it arriving in Spain or in Europe. That's
Right.
part of the rules. So if something goes wrong, and pet transport companies are booked for months in advance. So if something goes wrong with your travel date because of some document not arriving and you have to push it back, then you've got to cancel your pet transport, and you probably already paid for it by then.
Yeah.
And so everything has got to be timed down to to cope with it. And if one document goes out, then that can just cause the whole thing to collapse, can't it?
Yeah, that's well, so I mean, if the documents go out of date, I mean, again, this is a very important thing to mention, is the how easy it is to get documents. So things like medical certificates are now, let's say, relatively easy to get and a fast turnaround. Our guys with our apostilles and our translator, very good. They turn around things very quickly if needed. Marriage
Yeah.
certificates, normally in the UK, marriage certificate, you can get them quick-ish, between
If you
5 to
pay a
10
bit
minutes.
extra, you can.
Things like Acros can take forever. Now, Acro have got their express service now, which they're charging £115 for, but doesn't, when you do that, they say they've got backlogs, so never mind. So anybody who actually done the express service, I'd like to know your what happens. So let us know. But yeah, things like the Acro, if you an order could take 30 days. So there shouldn't really, your Acro should never run out, because that 180-day validity should be able to work with that.
Yeah, yeah,
It's a
absolutely.
90-day one.
That, in theory, should be the easiest one.
Yeah, in theory.
Yeah. And what was I going to say? Yeah, I just written down emergency fund. That I think this is really important. It's always good to have. There's something's going to go wrong. I think that's the thing that you should get in your head without being pessimistic, and feeling bad about the whole experience. Something will go wrong. Some document will not happen. In our case, it was the car broke down and we missed an appointment as we got into Spain, and that put everything back. So that all cost extra. So yeah, have an emergency fund there, and if your house sale happens too early, then you're going to need somewhere to live, and if you don't have relatives or friends who can put you up for that length of time, then you're going to have to rent somewhere, and that's not going to be cheap. So yeah, emergency fund.
Yeah, and that also that's a good point you've mentioned there, is that relates back to what address do you have on your documents if you've sold a property. You're not actually living in your property, but you've sold it and you're going to consulate and everything's addressed to that to that
Yeah.
address, which is something else that always needs managing. So that's not a problem, because you're going to have, especially if you depend on funds from the sale of the property, proof as to why the documents are addressed at your address which you've just sold. You're going to have a completion statement. You're going to have an acro with a date on it which shows you've ordered it before the completion statement. Yeah. So as long as the story is correct when you present it to the consulate, that's fine. That's not a problem. But you have to present it in a way that they understand it.
Yeah, so have you had anybody who's moved from, say, they sold their house in, I don't know, County Durham, and they've moved in with a relative in North Yorkshire? So you've moved from the Edinburgh
Yeah,
catchment area to the Manchester catchment area. That could be a tricky
it
situation,
is.
couldn't it?
And
You're gonna.
this is a huge it depends, because you have to make sure that you explain it properly to them, and then you don't always get the opportunity to explain it to them.
Hmm.
So staying within the same catchment area isn't really a problem if you have a discrepancy of the two addresses, because although you can prove why you have a discrepancy. I've moved into temporary accommodation, but
Hmm.
when you go from one consulate district to another in temporary accommodation, that's where you really have to make an assessment and you look at the documents and go, hang on a minute, my bank account statements say this address. I've got to be able to prove to the consulate where I'm actually living in this district now.
Hmm.
You know, that's where it really depends on who revises your file on the day to whether they even accept the paperwork or not. And then don't forget now that BLS also send the paperwork to the consulate, so you don't get to have that chat to the consulate. So yeah, we've had a couple who then managed to generate structures, chatted about it, and actually changed addresses on a lot of the documents, or used, especially for things like criminal records check, the temporary address to get the criminal records check sent there.
Hmm.
Or people have actually travelled to the consulate where all the paperwork has been addressed to that consulate district, and albeit they're sleeping on their mate's sofa in London, everything else points to the Edinburgh consulate, so they've had to go up there and do it that way.
Yeah, yeah. It just makes travel a bit more difficult, doesn't it?
It does. And then it's, can you have a correspondence address to then send the passport back to that region? Because if you do structure it like that, but then you go back to your temporary, you've got to get your passport sent there. Um, and yes, you can. You can put a correspondence address for your passport to the BLS office. We had one occasion where they just weren't having it, and they said no. They were just going to go back to the address on the paperwork, so it had to go back there. But it's all things to bear in mind when you're doing the assessment of an NLV case.
Yeah, I suppose if you have a if you have to push everything back by 6 months because of, I don't know, capital gains tax or difficulties with some documents,
Mhm.
then you've got to keep on checking that your passport's going to be in date and that you've got enough on your passport, because if you end up moving into temporary accommodation and having to change your passport and and get that through in the post, that's another hurdle you've got to get over, isn't
Absolutely, and great point there. Actually, I haven't mentioned that even didn't have it on these fantastic notes that I've got here either. Bit of paper was
it?
was the passport validity. Obviously, your passport validity isn't necessarily what it says on your passport. It's only 10 years from the when it's
The official
issued.
start date, yeah.
Yeah,
So it's
so
10
you've got
years
to
back from the expiry date. Oh no, it's 10 years. You've got to
forward from
go
the issue.
4 years from the issue date. That's right, yeah. Yeah,
So you've
yeah,
got to
yeah.
go 10 years forward from the issue date. So if you've got an 11-year passport, you know, a 10.5-year passport, it's only 10 years from the date it was issued.
Hmm.
And that's where Jade, when Jade is lining up the application forms, and or Lara does them as well quite a bit, when they come to me, when we've done our initial let's get started email, it comes with, they send, the client send all their documents to us, and then I'll get a Chris warning expiry date. And that's when we have the first call. We go, right, we've already identified X, Y, Z. You need to get a new passport.
Brilliant. Pete says BLS Edinburgh took 3 weeks to get the NLV for us. Excellent service. That's good to know. And he said he sold his house and is living with son until July in Newcastle. Lovely place. And Mike Ripper says, plan for the best but expect the worst. Or is it the other way around? It could be the other way around. Depends if you're going to go for the optimistic or the pessimistic route. I tend to think I always go for the pessimistic route, but I don't like using the word pessimistic. I think go for the realistic option that something is going to go wrong. Because if you think pessimistic, you think everything's going to go wrong, and but you can't put yourself in that mindset because you're just going to get depressed about the whole thing. So I say go for the realistic long-term approach of saying, yeah, accept that it's going to take too long, and then you'll be pleasantly surprised, and just plan for the option of if it happens earlier than you think it's going to do. But yeah, you've getting all of your ducks in a row. What a nightmare. And Pete says, thank you guys for all the advice.
We need to get a psychologist on. That's what we need.
Yeah.
Psychologically preparing yourself for the move to Spain. You know, that's it's a huge thing. You know, it's not. There's lots of things that we don't take into account, and you have to remember, especially for us who are now living here, you know, in Spain, and people are coming over. Is things like leaving the family. You know, there's timing factors like when can my family come and visit? Because you know, there's so many. When we're setting a structure in place for people's paperwork, what you've always got to bear in mind is, because we're very, you know, it's very black and white, we need this as your structure, there's a personal element behind that as well, you know, and people, the nervousness of moving, that's a huge thing. And it's something that, you know, you'll be fine, yeah, tapas on the beach, ooh, that's easy. And some people are quite anxious about ordering tapas on the beach, so it's always meant to be aware of, try to be aware of.
Yeah, absolutely. Moving house just on its own is one of the most stressful things. It's been scientifically tested that that's one of the most difficult things to do. But moving house to a different country and having to get a visa for it is just it's a whole different ball game.
It is.
So let's just have a look at some of the live chat. I've not been watching it as it's gone past, but yes, T-Rex Edinburgh Consulate asks me where I want to send the passport. Yes, they would do, of course. That's getting your passport back from the consulate as well. So if you've moved house into, you know, if you've sold your house in the meantime while all that's going through, they might send your passport back to your old house where you've moved out of and you haven't got the key anymore. And Robbo's put in a plug for you there. Let's put it up on screen. If anybody watching is new to Skatz channel and thinking of moving to Spain, Upsticks are a brilliant company and walk you through every step of the process. Chris has been first class with us. There you go. And Ant and Kez say that, echoing Robbie, which should be Robbo. Nice one. Susan McGee's back on again. I haven't seen your name for a while, Susan, on there. Thank you for coming on the live chat. Good morning, she says. And Mad David says, this is off topic, but if you're on the NLV visa, can you rent out a second property in Spain to bring some money in? Good question. We've had this one before.
Yeah, as long as you're not working in that property, you know, and as long as you're not running around with a tray with drinks on it, serving it to the pool, and, you know, cleaning the sheets and, you know, DJing. So, you know, jokes aside, then no, you can't. As long as, if it's a long-term rental and it's passive income, and for example, I have a long-term rental that we rent out, and every time something goes wrong, we get the plumber, someone in to go and fix it. That's fine. We've got proof that, not that I'm on an LV, but proof that someone else is doing the work. What you can't do is do any activity which would be deemed as self-employed, i.e. running a hotel or a B&B or an Airbnb. So, but yeah, owning an asset and getting passive income from that asset's fine.
Yes, and of course you can have a management company who are looking after all of the working tasks. So that makes it possible. Although I asked the question with Rochelle when she was on the show, and she's saying, "Oh yeah, it's all right if you're only doing the website or something like that, and you're just going in every now and then to clean up, then that's all right." And apparently some people are doing that, but officially speaking, that's classed as work. So
now, what I have this a lot, because I know there are people who have certain structures which allows them to be in an NLV and be flexible with their income. Maybe, you know, there's I know there's a lot of Americans do it as well, and there's two things that you need to look at. And things you need to look at is, and I always refer back to the Spanish accountant now, is when you come to do your Declaración de la Renta, the fantastic video, plug for your video with Antonio, how will that income be perceived and declared? You know, and when you do have an asset which is going to be earning money, speak to an accountant and say, whatever structure this is in, would I have to be self-employed to receive that money? If you turn around and say, yeah, then you can't do it in an NLV. So that's basically it.
Yes. Yes, indeed. Hope that answers your question, David. And Ant says, used to be indecisive, now I'm not so sure. Ha ha ha. Good one. Keep the jokes coming, Ant. They're all dad jokes today. I tell you what, should we go for the halfway point? Time it's we've been going for 40 minutes now, so why not? I'm looking forward to this. As usual, it's time for a quick message from me and my alter egos and the voices in my head to tell you all about the wonderful things available to you as YouTooSpain fans. So take it away. Here we go. Are you getting the most out of YouTooSpain? I don't know. Did you know that apart from these Saturday morning live shows with expert guests, or expats with really exciting stories to tell, it's like the Graham Norton show. There are videos every Wednesday evening, packed with all the information you need, so we can move to Spain and enjoy living here without paying tax. No, Colonel, that's illegal. But you can find out how to navigate the bureaucracy successfully. Well said, Walter. How do I find the videos? Just subscribe to the YouTube channel, darling. And click on the bell, you useless Colonel. There's a playlist here called Video Diaries. Oh, now that is Skatz's thrilling personal story about his life and health in Spain. Still alive! Hashtag FOF. You can support YouTooSpain as well, my darlings, if you think you've learned something valuable, or if you've been entertained. Skatz looks like he needs your support. The poor bugger can't even stand up. If he was a horse, I'd shoot him. Colonel! He's not a very nice man. It's all right. He's just a two-dimensional stereotype. Aren't we all, sweetie? I'm not. Brexit! Moving on! So how do we support YouTooSpain? Use the QR code in the corner. Or there's a link in the video description below. I can't find it anywhere, darling. In the video description, you idiot. I've warned you, Colonel. I'll send you back to the nunnery. While you're watching or pausing, below the video, you'll see the title. Just here. Oh, I see it. Not far below that, there's a description of what the video is all about. It says, read more. That's right. Just click or tap on that and lots more text appears. What's the information all about? There's contact information for the expert guests and lots of links to other related companies that I recommend. And they help out YouTooSpain if you use those links to get in touch with them. There's so much down below. Does anyone have a pen? No need, Tommy. You can find everything on our website. YouTooSpain.com. And don't forget the Facebook page. And the YouTooSpain community group, where you can talk to other people like you. There's no one like me, sweetie. Thank goodness. Is that everything? There's a guest waiting to tell me things. Oh, I do like things. Where's Doogie Dog? That used to be his line. I'm stuck behind a wall. Oh, sorry, Doogie. I'll come and find you after the show. Thank you, Master. Get back to the show. I need to go and punch some servants. Oh, Colonel. Back to Skatz in the studio. Thank you, Skatz, Walter, Dick, Tommy, Colonel and Doogie Dog for joining us from behind a wall. If you have any questions for any of them, ask in the comments. I keep saying this every week, but nobody yet so far has had any questions for any of the characters. And they're feeling very lonely. I was just thinking in the middle of that, I should re-record and update that, because there's me wearing some really thick top and some of the characters as well wearing more clothes than you can wear in the summer in Spain. So maybe it's time to re-record that one. Yeah.
Why
anyway,
do you do that? What do you do? I find I have a distinct lack. So I'm always on my phone trying to take photos and think, oh, that'll come in handy. Some of my photos come in handy from like 3 years ago, for like thumbnails and article headers and,
Yeah.
general content. I have a distinct lack of content from summer months. You just get too. Oh, I always got me wearing a coat or something. I'm thinking I'm giving the wrong message here. What's going on?
Yeah. Yeah, I'm always getting that. And that's why, as well, that's why that's why I blurred the background here, just so you can't quite tell exactly whether it's the middle of summer. And there are things there that make it obvious that it is the middle of summer, but yeah, you can't tell at the moment. But it's obviously a lot cooler. I mean, a lot warmer in the office now. I've not got my heating on, and I'm wearing my thinnest clothes, but I've still got a jacket on. So, yeah, you can usually tell the time of year from my thumbnails, because I try and update the thumbnails all the time and make them of the moment. But yeah, so that's the hazards of being a YouTuber, isn't it?
Got to get more summer content. I sometimes come across. I'm always taking photos. I was taking photos yesterday in Porvalinos, and I thought I don't really know what I'm taking of. It'll come in handy in the future,
Yeah,
But I think about June, you sort of get hot and just forget.
yeah. It is very easy to forget. Yeah.
Yeah.
There you go. So, tell us about some other examples of mistakes that people make that could be avoided. Yeah, how to avoid them.
Yeah, I mean, we were looking at, well, avoiding mistakes. So, I mean, talking about the timeline, well, getting your structure correct and being flexible with it is definitely a way of avoiding them. You mentioned one thing there, which was having, just expecting a little bit more expenditure. So, as long as you're going into a circumstance knowing that you're ordering documents that you might have to reorder, yeah, so you have what we call like plan A and then plan
Mm.
B. Right, as long as you've got plan B and you understand that there are some risks for certain documents you order, it doesn't come too much of a shock if you have to revert to plan B, does it?
Mm.
So plan A and plan B is certainly a good idea. And then obviously the next thing is actually moving to Spain. And this is where the problems with property purchasing and rentals and stuff come in, because a lot of people, and I was talking to two people Wednesday who are exactly in the same situation, where we're also going on about actually we don't think it's a bad idea to rent first before buying. Okay,
Uh-huh.
I still think that depending on the areas you're going to, rental expense is actually considered an investment
Yeah.
because you're really getting your feet under the table and you're learning about the area, and most quite possibly if you're looking to buy in the future, you'll save the money you spent on rental by getting your choices right.
Hmm.
And people take that advice on board, and then they'll say, right, Chris, it's March, expected entry date September, October, let's put the timeline in place, let's go. Then they start looking for a rental, and then there's no rentals.
Yeah.
So it's like, oh, hang on a minute. And you know what? There's no rentals. There's no rentals because the rental market is crazy. People aren't able, even local people aren't able to buy houses, so they're going for rentals. Again, talking very broadly about, the whole of Spain, because everywhere's quite, the local demographic of villages is completely different from one to the next. But
Hmm.
one thing which is commonplace that's happened in the last 18 months is that rentals come up and then get snapped down completely. We've spoken to so many rental agents and said, oh, look, we've got clients that are coming over, could we collaborate? And they're not interested. They're like, look, we've got waiting lists of people. And so you end up having this uncertainty, unfortunately, of getting all your ducks in a row, but maybe not being able to secure a rental until you land, you know.
Hmm.
And I'm not too sure what the solution is to that. I think, again, going back to what you're saying, you might
Hmm.
have to have extra funding to make sure you've got somewhere to stay while looking for that rental when you hit the ground running.
Yeah. I can say from my
Yeah.
experience, it was that we did look for rental properties before we moved, but there was absolutely no substitute for having your feet on the ground and being face to face with estate agents and locals to give advice of what properties, because properties come up and they're snapped up really quite
Yeah.
quickly. So actually being there, and also we didn't know exactly where we wanted to live. We had some kind of general idea, and we drew a circle on the map that was an hour away from Malaga. It's never exactly a circle, because some roads are quicker to travel on than others. So if if you go along the A7, the big motorway on the coast road, you can get as far as Motril easily in 60 minutes, can't you? Or
Yeah,
even
yeah,
beyond there.
yeah.
Whereas if you want to go up in the mountains, then you can't be quite as far from Malaga, because it's 25 minutes from the motorway just to go up a little mountain road, because it goes like that all the way up. So yeah, you don't know till you get here. And so we landed, and we had a time frame that we had to find a rental property, find the area we were going to live first, and then find a rental property there. So we had to do that quite quickly, but it's possible. You just got to take a gamble. That's why sometimes you just got to. It's like jumping over a wall without knowing what's on the other side. You've just got to trust that you'll land okay.
Yeah, and it's also looking at from the paperwork side of things. So there's two conversations again I've had this week. Was with one client who's going to be coming to. They said, "Oh, I'd be Valencia or Alicante," and I was like, "Well, from our point of view, we really need to know if it's going to be Valencia or Alicante, because it completely changes the structure of what we have to do on stage 2."
Yeah.
So we have the structure in Valencia, and what you need for the Valencian appointments is different to Alicante. Yeah, and there's a huge difference, geographic difference as well. And if you imagine if you had landed if you decided to stay in Loja, when but then you went over the hill to Computer, which isn't a million miles, but there's two different provinces. So we ended up doing all of your appointments here or in Belest. If you'd have stayed in Loja, then you're looking at Granada or Motril.
Yeah.
So again, different ways of getting there, so there is that as well. You've got to look at what province you land in to ultimately how your paperwork's going to get handled.
Mm-hmm. And the province you land in, and do a short-term rental or an Airbnb while you're looking for a long-term rental. You could end up in a different province, like we did, and that was just because Steve and Mandy, our mates, were generous enough to offer a place for us to stay at the time, but it just happened to be in the wrong province for us.
Yeah. So that's something else to bear in mind when you land. It's a little bit. Yeah, I think you have to, again, at this point, when you are landed, put a pin in the map and have your circle, as you say, and just be aware if that does cross into another province, that it completely changes everything. Of course, the same here. You look in Malaga and Cadiz, so you go all the way down to Manilva, right? Manilva, we can manage the appointments here in Malaga. It means you've got to drive up here to us. But if you go over into San Roque, that's Cadiz. So we're suddenly talking about appointments in Algeciras or further down, or La Linea, so... we've had a couple of times the clients go, "Oh, in San Roque, we'll come up to Malaga and have the appointment." No, we've got to come 2 hours to you.
Yeah. You just go over it. It's like a little artificial barrier. Once you step over that line, you're in a completely different area.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, Steffi's asking. It's interesting. Do I have plans to have Rochelle back on to talk through the digital nomad visa and the timelines for that? Not as such, not going to booked in, but that's a very good idea. We haven't talked about the digital nomad visa for a little while. So actually, let me just write down big letters, DNV, and I'll get that organised. We've not got any spots free until some point in late June, I think, at the moment. But I'll get in touch. But it does raise the other issue of we've been talking about non-lucrative visas, really, but all of the other visas, and including the working visa, self-employed, digital nomad visa, and student visa, they've all got different timing structures, haven't they?
They have, and I mean, we do a lot. We do some stage. We don't do the stage ones, which we call actually getting the visas for the DMVs and stuff. But we do stage twos, where people have got visas, and we help them get their TIE cards. And sometimes we come across that where people may have entered the country, their visa's expiring, or they need to travel but they don't have a permanent address, and the whole managing of that process as well can be quite tough. Digital nomads, I mean, and then you're talking about which offices actually ask for things like a permanent address. You know, so there's certain offices in Alicante, here in Malaga, where first time registration you can get away with not having a permanent address for the first time registration, but certainly not for the renewal. And then not having a permanent address also affects other things. Like, so we've got one example at the moment with a lady who has moved to a residential mobile home park, and they came in. We met at a place in the sun actually, and we got the documents sorted out. It was really good. She was really happy to get a visa. We managed to get the TIE card without a Padron certificate because they left Malaga, where she lives. It's an absolute nightmare. It takes 3 months to get a Padron through. So we had to register the visa and offer an explanation as to why we didn't have a Padron. They were happy with it. They gave her a TIE card, which is actually coming up for renewal. And then there was a problem with the Padron, basically because the residential site, the town hall want a certain wording on a document which the owner of the site is not willing to give. So this person now doesn't have a Padron, which means we can't finalise the healthcare registration. Which is a huge risk. So at that point, you've got to look at, well, do I need private healthcare not only for moving forward with my renewal, but do I need it to cover me if something happens? So there's things like that you have to bear in mind as well, if you're on an S1 maybe.
Nightmares. I was just thinking about advice I was going to say earlier on. Finding the area you're going to live. It's probably the best idea to come on holiday and try out different areas first and narrow it down then before you come. If we'd done that, I think, well, I'm not sure that we just kind of rushed for it because I'd got my Irish passport through and we thought, of course, it's a lot easier being EU than not being EU. It meant that we could just go, let's go for it and let's leap over that wall and land where we land and then take it from there. But not as easy to do if you're planning a visa at the same time. So yeah, the advice I've given out before on videos is for people to find out, narrow it down to where you're going to live, and that will make things a lot easier. And like you were talking about, getting in the right province so that you know which office you're going to be applying to for your TIE, for your fingerprints and that kind of thing, because that's going to make a lot of difference to the timeline.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And in terms of the digital nomad visa and self-employment visa and working visa, there's two completely different ways of doing it, depending on whether you apply at the consulate in your home country, in the UK, for example, or you come for 90 days and apply for your digital nomad visa while you're there, and you apply from inside Spain, and then you've got an absolute deadline of 90 days when it's got to be sorted out or when it's got to be applied for. So yeah, and then having your paperwork exactly right, it means you've got no margin for error. After that 90 days is over, you've got to get out of Spain if it's not sorted out.
Yeah, and you can't. So the digital nomad visas, which is the platform, is the UGE. It's not immigration as such, and that allows you to apply for it here. But as you say, you need to have your paperwork. Once you've applied, you can stay while you're waiting for it. But you have to have your paperwork in a row, ready to make sure even on day 89 after your entry stamp that you submit it.
Yeah, exactly. Okay. Sunday Roast says, "Hi, Scats. Great to connect. Yes, indeed. You're making me feel hungry with your name, Sunday Roast. Oh, that's good. I'm going to go into town after this and grab all of the ingredients now, so I can get that started immediately. Let's get the chicken on straight away. And Kev the Argonaut is saying summer is starting here in Murcia. Pool water temperature was 19 when I opened it 2 weeks ago. It was 29 this week. 29 is almost at that temperature where you go, no, that's too warm to get in. You need a cooler pool than that. Ours is only at 20 because we've got loads of trees in the garden, so there's loads of shade. We only get about 4 or 5 hours of sunlight directly on the pool, which a lot of people say, oh no, that's going to be too cold. But trust me, when you get into July and August and the temperatures are 40 degrees in the shade, you want a pool that's less than 25 degrees, so you can just get into the cool. There we go.
Pool management, that's one thing to do. If you ever learning how to manage a pool for the first time, if you've never had one, you need to watch plenty of Spanish YouTube videos. That's a mistake I made, was that I was watching, I couldn't work it out. I got some ridiculous quotes, someone come and manage a pool, and I was like, I can do this myself.
Yeah.
But I was watching videos from the United States because they're all in English. And that's how the pools, and I couldn't understand the products and anything. It just occurred to me, just Google it in Spanish, and suddenly all these Andalusians popped up, and I was like, oh, I know that, I understand that. So pool management, that's another.
And we were lucky because our landlord does pool management as part of his. He's a kind of plumber and general fontaneria. Is that fontanera? So he sent one of his lads around, and we videoed him talking us through how to do the pool and how to do it. And it's everything in the pump room. There are so many different levers and things that you've got to turn and twist, and then you've got to clean out the filter, and there's filters on the pool, and there's filters downstairs in the pool room as well. So there's all kinds of stuff to do. But and I would have completely forgotten by now, or even a day afterwards, I'd have forgotten what to do. So I've still got that video on my phone and on my laptop. So but Liz does all of that because she's got pamper days and stuff on in the garden, so she's always really keen on keeping the pool clean all of the time and putting the bubbles through at the right amount of hours per day and everything like that. So she knows. I've forgotten how to do everything, but if she happen to take ill, then I've got a video and I can just take myself through it. But yeah, pool management, it must have saved us a fortune. And just knowing the right amount of.
Do you test do you test the red and the yellow and the? I gave up.
No, we've not done that. No, he didn't teach us to do anything. You just got to know how much of the chlorine tablets to put in. Yeah. And of course, there's different ones as well. You've got salt water and not salt water. And I'm not sure which is easiest, but you've got to get the right amount of salt in if it's the salt water. Ours isn't, but it does use salt. It filters through the salt, but there's no salt in the water afterwards. There's a salt filter down in the pool room, and the water filters through that, and that I think is cleaning. That cleans it first, but it's not salt water when it comes out the other end.
Right.
Can't quite understand it. It's definitely not a saltwater pool.
My ours not, but I gave up on trying to get the chemical levels right, and I just sort of smell it and go, yeah, it looks clean and doesn't smell too bad, and no one's died yet, so we're fine. Yeah,
if it's not green, that's a good sign.
It's not green.
And if it doesn't smell like a the sort of swimming pool you used to go to when in the UK, because they smell like too much chlorine because they've got so many people in there. You don't want it smelling like that if there's only two of you.
You got to, especially if you've got kids and kids' friends, you got to remember not to be too precious about your pool either, because it would just drive you balmy, because everybody jumps in with suntan lotion on it and stuff like that. So if you are going to have, I think if you're going to have your family over for a couple of weeks, then you just know that you're not going to keep it crystal clean. Have a nice couple of weeks and work on it afterwards, because it's just not going to happen.
Yeah, exactly. And you do get busy. It's like Kev the Argonaut is saying on there. I didn't read the last bit of it. He says, mind you, I'm too busy to use it. Went in it once to fit the lights and had a quick swim. I mean, I hardly use our pool at all. Liz goes in it for a dip regularly and frequently. But what I tend to do is, because I can't use my feet to swim properly, I can't. My feet don't go pointy like that. That's what my foot looks like in the pool. So I go like that. I just end up splashing and kicking. If I put a float in front of myself and kick my legs, I end up going backwards. It's just ridiculous. So I have to wear flippers if I'm going to go for a swim. And our pool's only, it takes 3 flaps and I'm at the other end and I have to turn around and come back again. And it's ridiculous. So I just put the flippers on. I go one way, then the other. And then I just get onto the lilo and get me can of beer into the little hole on the side. And then that's me done for the day. And it's got 2 holes at the bottom so I can stick my flippers through it. And I can just gradually move around the pool and just put my hand in and change direction like this. So that's the fun that I get out of it anyway. There you go. So, and Mike Rippers, this is a nice one. A pilot told me that every landing is a controlled crash. Once they're up, they know they're coming down. It's just a question of how hard. Relocating is pretty well the same, I think. That's a good analogy.
That's great. It's a great analogy. I think should have told that to our Ryanair pilot who was coming back into Malaga last Wednesday. It felt like a controlled crash, I can tell you.
Sunday Rose says it's just wet in the UK. Very, very wet. Try before you buy. Yes, absolutely indeed. Oh,
discovery trips, that's what we were touching on, wasn't it? It's discovery trips are so important.
Yeah, absolutely. And it really is different from what you see on the telly. All of the things that you see on programs like A Place in the Sun. Everybody's saying just the comments like, oh, this is a nice light and airy room. That's exactly what we're looking for. Loads of light, big windows. And if you're in Granada, for example, or Seville, the last thing you want is really big windows. That's why they've got cave houses. Tiny, tiny little windows and massive thick walls. You don't want any sunshine coming in. You want somewhere dark because you're going to spend most of your time out of the house, let's face it. And when you're sleeping, you need the cool. So that's the same in general with every aspect of when you come to Spain. Everybody says, yeah, I want a lovely Spanish community. And then they get there and they can't speak Spanish and they need contact with some English speakers and they can't. Although I think that's a good way of learning Spanish, is just completely immerse yourself. But just lots of different things you don't realise until you're there and you're on the ground and you start living there for a few weeks. You realise that the local place to buy shoes is, an hour and a half away. If you want the sort of shoe shop to buy the sort of shoes that you really want, you don't realise. You don't realise like we got a car here. We got a Volkswagen Passat estate car, and we didn't think about how high above the ground clearance was for the car, and we thought, yeah, that'll be fine. Driving up and down the roads, it was lovely, very smooth, beautiful thing to drive. But it wasn't until we'd been here for a few days and driving over the concrete bump that you need to get through our gates into the driveway, and the car bouncing up and hitting the concrete, and it was wrecking the car. So we had to get a new car. Yeah. That had just an extra few centimetres of ground clearance. So it's all of those little details that you don't realise until you're there. So yeah, try before you buy, because the process of selling a house to move and buy another house, you lose quite a lot of money because you're paying tax. You might pay some capital gains, tiny amount, but then you've got to pay all of the different taxes to buy the property, and you've got to pay a lawyer, property lawyer, and you've got to pay 7 to 10% tax in whichever, depending on what region you're in. So yeah, you could lose quite a lot of money. So that's why you're saying that the renting the right property is an investment. It's very much so before you buy.
Absolutely, Spain's a huge country. It came highlighted it. I was speaking to somebody when I was in the UK last weekend. Now, it was a place in the sun. We saw this apartment on the beach for 120 grand, and it looks quite nice, and we could come and visit you. And I'm like, 7 hours away. It's quicker for me to jump on a Ryanair flight, come to Stansted and see you than it would be to get there. So The problem is and there is other, geographical limitations. Like, for example, if you're next to a motorway, like, we can actually jump on the motorway, get to Montreal really quickly, different province, an hour away, and it's 100 kilometers away, but unless there's a crash on the motorway, there's nothing stopping us get there in 50 minutes to an hour. Whereas Benalmádena, for example, Torre Quebrada here, which is on our doorstep, is 45 minutes away on a bad day because you're down the motorway, and I've had people come and stay, and I've got a hotel down in Lagunas. I've looked at it; it's only 20k from where you live. Yeah, 20k. It's an hour each way because of the traffic. So there's a lot of things that you have to take into account, really. Proximity to motorways and facilities and etc.
Yeah, one of Liz's family arrived, and they drove from Malaga to our place, and they went up the wrong valley. So Malaga is an hour away, door to door from the airport, but because they'd gone up the next valley, they'd taken an hour already, and to get from that valley just to here, which is where we are in the next valley, you have to go all the way back down along the motorway and then back up to get to ours. And it took over an hour for them to get to where they'd been. So they were further away, even though geographically they were only that far away. They were actually further away in terms of time than they would have been if they just went back to Malaga and set off from there again. So yeah, you don't realise these things until you're there.
No.
Kev's talking about swimming pools again. This is probably from ages ago. Didn't notice that. He's talking about a solar cover. Just increases the temperature fast. Yeah, have you seen these, Chris? It's like a bubble wrap thing that you put over the pool, and it keeps the heat in. And also, it actually magnifies the sun and heats up the water as well. So, and it saves you a lot of money, and it also stops the water evaporating. So especially when there's a drought on and you're not allowed to fill your pool up, then those things are really good. You can actually go through most of the summer without having to top your pool up very much. Saves about 90% or more of evaporation. So might be worth getting one of those. It costs you a bit, especially if you've got a funny shaped pool, because you've got to get them to cut it to the exact size because you don't want any gaps around the edge, because water's just going to evaporate there. So it's worth paying for a good one, I think, of those.
They roll up, don't they, towards the end of the pool? Like, where you just get a roller and you can roll it up. Yeah. And then just pull it out.
Yeah, absolutely. And Kev says it's easier than a marine fish tank. Oh, absolutely. Yeah. You've got to get the salt content exactly right on those. We just had just the tropical one, which wasn't the marine saltwater one. And even that, just all of the delicate adjustments that you've got to make. But of course, any time you reduce something down to the size of a fish tank, it's just a tiny micro environment, and you've got to get everything even more accurate. What did he say? I had a pH and hardness issue at first, got that sorted. Did a shock and put 3 tabs in the floater. That's the chlorine tabs, isn't it? Sling the robot in regularly, and it pretty much looks after itself. So that's a robot cleaner. Yes, and somebody was saying about we don't have a floater to put the tablets in. We put ours in the filter at the side or somewhere where the water comes in. And somebody said, no, put it in the floater, because then you don't have to put as many tablets in, because it moves around the pool and distributes itself a lot better. So yeah, there's all kinds of little things like that. But then again, you're just like us, aren't you, Chris? You're going, as long as it's not green, it's okay.
I was going to laugh, because I had a pH and hardness issue until I threw the little machine away that said I had a pH and hardness issue. And then I didn't have it.
Yes. No problem.
and then I just used the floater and the filter and put my toe in to make sure it doesn't burn off. And then that's probably not the best way to do it. So far,
probably not. No. But you're all still alive. That's the main thing.
Yes. Yeah.
And David Tunmer says, "Good morning, guys. Sorry, just turned up. just turned in. So can I give a big shout out to Chris and Jane? Couldn't have done it without your help and support. See you in July. Lovely.
Well done, guys. Yeah, you had a good appointment this week, so here's for a speedy visa, and we'll see you in July.
Good. Where are you moving to then, David? Oh, you might be able to answer that one, Chris.
Close here, close to us here. So obviously I don't want to give the exact town, but we met in the office actually for the first time, which was lovely. So it's like we're seeing more and more people in person now. I'm trying to get out more as well, to see people. Been to Malaga a few times to meet clients who've been staying there, and obviously when we came off the back of COVID, we didn't see anybody for 2 years really, only at the appointments stage 2s, but we're meeting more and more clients in person for stage 1, which is quite nice.
Indeed. Mike Ripper says, place in the sun. This house is 150,000, but the agent has told me that the owner will take 85. I've never come across that scenario. That's quite a big drop. But I have a feeling that when people are advertising their properties on a place in the sun, that they put an elevated price on to start with, just so that the people who are making them a cheeky offer. Actually, the cheeky offer is not a cheeky offer. Just reminds me of being in Marrakesh and being in the souks in the market there, and they're saying, yes, we'll give you this knockdown price, a special sale on. Sale today, and they give you a price, and you knock them down by quite a lot. You take it down to 40 or 50% of what they initially ask you at the price, and then and you buy it, and then you go to the airport afterwards to fly home, and you see it about 50% cheaper than that. And airport prices are usually more expensive anyway. So yeah, I'm sure there's and I think British people especially are really intent on getting a massive bargain. So I think prices artificially go up because of that when they're listed.
It's your mentality as well, isn't it? So this is why again renting is sort of getting yourself. We do need a psychologist, I tell you. Let's find a psychologist on the channel, but it's getting yourself into that. So it's crazy. Like when I come back from the UK, suddenly everything here seems cheap. Yeah, because I've been there spending more money because things are more expensive, where it's not, because this is my economy. It's where I live. I live in Spain. I should be, so when you are coming from the UK and you come into Spain, you have to adjust your economy in your head to the local economy. And then suddenly you look at property and think it's not actually that cheap, But when you're sat in the UK and you're looking at a 2-bed place with a terrace at 150 grand, and you think, God blimey, I could only get, I couldn't get a garage for that round here, then it's cheap, doesn't it? So lining yourself up to just your discovery trip should be also discovering the local economy, really. What is it you're going to be spending on food, your property and stuff like that? So if you've looked at one property and think, God, that's cheap, look at 10 more in the area on different sites and compare them, and then see if it's really cheap.
Yeah, absolutely. And everything will, you'll find, and I'm not saying that Spanish people rip you off, or that anybody rips you off when you're in Spain. There's bound to be some that do, but you'll find ways of spending money better as you go along, because you'll find that a cheaper shop in the area, or a better workman who can do the job in a shorter space of time and for less money, because you've got the the local knowledge. Because as soon as you get somebody new coming into an area, you get all the guys who charge expensive stuff and advertise really heavily. They'll pounce on them straight away, and so you always end up paying more for things when you first arrive, and there'll always be more expenses to have until you know the local economy and you know the local people, I think.
Yeah, and even like things like going back to the swimming pool. I bet you didn't know this was going to be a swimming pool video, but going back to do a whole swimming pool video. But going back to that, like it's the unexpected expense, for example, of learning how to manage it. So I'm not as irresponsible to throw my kids in a chlorine-filled pool so the hair goes green. Don't worry. But jokes aside, the first year that I managed the pool in summer, I spent double on what I did now, because you're learning, aren't you? I need to compensate this with this, and this is this, and this product, and I shouldn't have bought this from the Chinese shop. I should have got it from the ferreteria because I realised I paid more in the Chinese shop and it's an inferior quality, things like that. And now I've got it down to like quite possibly a €15 spend a month on products, whereas I think the first month was like 100. Because I just, think, and that goes with everything, every aspect of your life, doesn't it? So when you buy a property, is the electrics in your property as well set up as they could be? You're changing your lights, so stuff like that always generates extra expense, even for people who live here like us. And I had it with a pool. Cars, for example, cars are exactly the same. We've got the Upsticks drive car, which I'm slowly learning that you cannot get no OEM parts for a Toyota, and everything for a Toyota that's 15 years old takes 2 weeks to get. That's a learning curve for me at the moment. I'm going, I'll just get it from the spares place like we always do. The garage is like 2 weeks, had to order it from Toyota, and it's going to be 3 times as much as what it cost you for the Kia. I'm like, so
it's well worth looking around, isn't it? Seeing how many cars there are of one particular brand. And there's loads of Fiat Pandas around here, tons of them. So you know that the garages can cope with them and that they can get parts easily, and they've probably got them in stock. So and the Dacia and the Kias, there's quite a lot of them around as well.
That's why I blame Rafa Nadal for our family car, because the moment that he when he was at his peak, he was promoting Kias and the Sportage, which is probably the biggest selling family car in Spain. And if you get a Sportage, then you're always going to find parts for it. Whereas if you get something, if you import a Toyota IQ and stick Upsticks drive on the side of it, I can tell you it's a pain to get bits.
It's well worth knowing the knowledge. There we go. Steffi says we've been talking about moving to Lanzarote for 15 years and holidaying in the same place since 2010. So we know where we want to be, but we did spend 3 months there in December to March this year as a trial. And that's another good point. Yeah, spend time in the winter because things can be different. Some areas just get completely dead. A lot of shops close down. A lot of the restaurants close down, and the locals go on holiday in those months. So it's good to know. If you want somewhere that's alive all year round, then you've got to be either in a city or in a tourist area that's got turnaround in different seasons as well. I mean, up in the mountains, you've got the walkers who are there all the way through to November and December, and they start again in February or March. They don't really stop in this area because there's no months when it's too cold and too snowy, really, unless you're right on the top of the mountains. There you go.
A lot of people actually stop doing sports in summer because it's too hot.
Yeah, that's it. All of that's a different kind of tourist, isn't it? The July and August tourists are the lying on the beach. So that was good. And Steph says it confirmed after a good while that it is right for us. Good. I'm glad you found the right place.
I'll be interested to know where. I went to Lanzarote this year, so did a bit of a discovery trip over there. So I'd love to know where you're looking at going.
Yeah. And Kate Sloan says, "Hi guys from sunny Scotland." That's a surprise actually. That there's a few friends of ours in Leicester when we lived there who used to go to Scotland quite a lot, and in the summer it can get so much hotter than it gets in England. If you're up on the I think on the west coast by the islands, it gets baking hot. And I've completed all of the major stuff. Retired October, purchased property in Torrevieja in November, sold the UK house in April, hoping to move September. Is it time to engage with Upsticks? Yeah, absolutely, because you've got the August months, which are always difficult. Tell us about that, Chris.
Yeah, definitely. Drop us an email actually to support@upsticks.es and let us know as well, so Jane can see if we can get your call booked in. So our calls are running in a couple of weeks at the moment. But yeah, obviously, August last year the experience wasn't too bad with BLS. We did have people going in, but what you have to be aware of, as we know, in August, is even if you can get an appointment in July and August at the BLS office, somewhere along the line, your paperwork's got to be processed by a Spanish administrative body, and a lot of the time they're on holiday in August. That's just the way it is. So you couple that with a lot of stupid applications, and people being on holiday can cause delays. So if you're looking at coming in September, definitely need to be engaging now.
Yeah, absolutely. And fortunately you've purchased a property as well, so you don't have to worry about the rental market, because if you turn up in early September trying to rent a property, then you've still got the holiday market doing them on short-term rentals, so you won't get a long-term rental in early September. But you bought a property, so.
The good thing about that, what Kate's saying there, is I can't see the notes on the thing, but we're seeing an awful lot more clients now who have been following content and building structures and doing exactly what Kate's done, selling the property, getting themselves ready, getting the temporary accommodation, preparing the property over here, before coming, which reduces the liability of risk on the whole timeline, doesn't it? So well done to get that far, already, and obviously do that kind of planning, because that's amazing.
Yeah, good stuff. Oh, Kev's talking about the swimming pool thing as well. This is important. If you put the tabs in the filter instead of in a thing going around the pool, it does kill the plastic in the filter. So that's one thing we have to sort out. Eventually it kind of rots away at the plastic, and so you end up having to replace the filters. So yeah. And
what I found, 2 products. I don't know if we should really do product placement on here, should we?
Not really, no.
No, I can't tell you then. Actually, no, I can tell you one of them. One of them is the 10FX tablets rather than 5, because that could be anybody's thing. They seem, because they have a little bit of shock in them as well. When you've had a big family, use a 10FX. And the other thing is these gels, which are the flocculent gels which go in your filter. If you do during the summer have people around and you need to clean your pool pretty quickly, they seem to work really well, and you don't need to hoover the bottom and lose water. So they're the 2 things I manage a dirty pool with, which generally happens a lot in our house.
Excellent. And Kev, also in answer to you saying you need a psychologist on the show, says if you need a psychopath on the show, I can help out. There we go. Thank you. And Ant says straight in at the deep end. Oh, he said it depends. Yeah. Typo again. And Yogi says, hi guys, sorry I'm late, but thank you for the £4.99 donation there, Yogi. That's brilliant. He's done it on the membership thing, or the $sign that's down on the screen over that side. I can't point my finger in the right direction because I'm not mirrored. And Yogi also says, lovely to see you, buddy. And sorry to hear your other Skatz channel has been taken down. What's that about? Yeah, my Skatz, man, where I was going to put all of the video diaries and my music and everything on there, it got taken down. And I think it's because I've been duplicating the videos. I've been putting them, I've had a kind of a changeover period. I said in May, I'll put them up on both channels, on this one and on Skatzman, just so that you can get used to changing over and tell people to subscribe to the other channel. But apparently that's against their spam policy guidelines or something, and they just took the channel down like that. And I just can't get in touch with them properly. I made an appeal, and once you've made an appeal and they've said no, then you can't get in touch with them again, because they say you've already had an appeal and we sent you an email all about it. But all they sent me was an email saying we've taken it down because it's against this policy. But I couldn't get an explanation as to exactly what I'd done that was against the policy, because it just doesn't seem to make any sense. But anyway, I'm just going to forget about that one now and just carry on putting the videos up on YouTooSpain, because I was doing that before and that was working. So, and there you go. And how did my gig go?
Like you're trying to monetize 2 videos.
So I'm not monetized on the other channel. So
right.
Yeah, I was just kind of building that one up, and so people could watch that specifically for the video diaries. So anyway, how did my gig go last night? Brilliantly, thank you, mate. And he says, good to see you, Chris. Hope you're well. Are you feeling better now? Because you went through a bit of a bad patch, didn't you?
Yeah. No, I wasn't too well a couple of weeks ago, but I'm better. I'm all up and strong now.
Good stuff. Steffi says she's in Punta Mujeres or Arieta. Well, that's where they stay. Do you know them places?
No, I didn't visit there. I'm gonna Google it though.
Yeah, find out. She says we love the winter in Lanza. The rural bit where we go closes a bit, but the main tourist bits are all open. Yeah, it is. It is all round. All of the Canaries are like that because it stays warm in the winter, doesn't it? It's a lot more regulated by the winds, I think.
Yeah. No.
I've not been there yet. So.
Ooh, Punta de Mujeres. That's right up the north there. I went past there.
Yeah.
Very nice that way. That's near the. I went to the Orzola, so we went to eat in Orzola. There you go. That's a nice place. I didn't realise it was touristy there, so that's nice.
Oh, there you go. Barry from Unitech. He's here. Hello. Apologies for the late attendance. Just got back from the heck. What's a heck? At Chianadi in Rhodes. Chianadi. Sounds Italian, that one, doesn't it? And Steffi says maybe Aria. Haria. Haria? Don't know how that's pronounced. Haria. Do you know that one? No, not been there. There we go.
Somewhere to visit. I'm planning to go back to Lanzarote though. It was I did enjoy it when we went.
Great stuff. Oh, Barry says that should have said beach. Just back from the beach. How did that turn out to be heck? That's just terrible typing. That's not the computer doing it. Nice one. And Robert Fincham says, great advice, Chris. Kate Sloan says, thank you guys, we'll be in touch soon. And Barry's put in have a brew on me. Has anybody gone over the GoFundMe yet? You can float above that and donate with that QR code. Oh, and Keir said, duplication is banned. Yes. I think it's the duplication.
Yeah.
There we go. There's just no way of finding out unless I wait for a month and put in the appeal and put a request in. I've asked on the forums, but I haven't got an answer yet. So, and Kev says, good to see you strong again, Chris. Doing some concreting in a couple of weeks. Can supply coffee and wellies. There you go. Oh, Stuffy says it's not touristy in Punta Mujeres. That's the point.
Oh, right. Okay. It's quite out. It's quite out there. It's a lovely drive out there. I went to the aloe. We stumbled across the aloe vera sort of plantation there. There was the aloe vera museum, and you get to watch this video and then buy the products. And I bought an aloe vera plant from there, and they allow you to carry it on the plane back to Spain.
Excellent.
So, yeah.
Well, listen, we've already done over an hour and a half today. It's been a great chat, actually. We've gone off piste and talked about lots of other things, including swimming pools. There was one question which I said I was going to answer, and this was from I think it was either on Facebook or under one of the videos. Somebody asking, they're coming up to their 4 or 5 year renewals, and we're just asking, has anything changed in the last 2 years regarding renewals there in Valencia? Do you know of anything that's changed?
So the EPREM obviously went up last year, didn't go up this year, so you might fall into the EPREM rise. A really good website. It's got a good article about that. So I'll put the link below.
Yeah.
Cool.
Cool.
Oh, you did it as well, your channel, so that's cool. You might find the EPREM rise. And apart from that, no. I mean, it should be really a copy of, depending if your circumstances have changed. So if your circumstances have changed, obviously whoever does your renewal will assess what you did the first time and when you're renewing. If your circumstances haven't changed and you've already done a renewal and it's been successful, then it should be a copy really of how you presented your first one. Say, for example, you had passive income or whatever. No, in that respect, apart from the financial side of things, you've already done a renewal. Nothing else should have changed.
I was wondering when I saw the question from 2 years ago, was it done online 2 years ago? Because I thought that's more recent, but he said no, he did it online for years 2 and 3 anyway. So that's been going a while now. I can remember that happening.
Mercurio.
And
It's because we weren't used to Mercurio before, because you didn't have that many residency applications that had to be submitted to the subdelegation. Only Mercurio came to light for most British people within the withdrawal agreement, because the moment that Boris Johnson said he wasn't going to extend the withdrawal agreement, then suddenly we went from the green card switch to having to apply for approval. So you would have the green card before then, and then suddenly it went under the subdelegation had to give you approval to get your withdrawal agreement card. And that's when suddenly everybody went, how do I get the approval? Well, you've got to have an appointment with the immigration department to hand in your paperwork. It's then assessed behind the scenes, right? No appointments were available because it was COVID. So how's the only other one you can do it is Mercurio. And that's when we found out about it. Well, that's when when British citizens, so again, now we're on NLV renewals, EU family members, all gets thrown into Mercurio. But the first time it came to light was then. It was within the withdrawal agreement.
I see. So it's been there for years, but it's just when we started talking about it on the show was less than 2 years ago, I think. Must be. Yeah. There we go. Catmando says, hello, gents. I'm watching from Inverness, Scotland. Love visiting Fuengirola. Yeah, absolutely. I quite like Fuengirola.
I think it's fantastic. It's if you like, it's not. It's just if you go towards the back streets in such a eclectic mix of nationalities and shops and stuff like that, it's absolutely great. You can get everything. You got the backstreet Chinese shops with the authentic stuff in, and you've got to get deep into Fingerola. Not the beach. There's loads of beaches. Get to the back end of Fingerola and look down there because it's incredible.
Yeah, good advice. Kev says, thanks guys and everyone. You've delayed my flat pack hell today really well. Glad we could help. And Kat Mando says, and I'd like to thank you, Scats, for the great video advice you made on driving. Oh, good stuff. Oh, I'm glad you enjoyed that one. That was fun to make as well. I'd set up all the microphones really, really well so that I could record me talking on the journey, but all you could hear was the the engine noise and and the wind as you go past, especially on the motorway. You couldn't hear me talking at all, so I had to re-record the all of the microphone stuff and all of the audio back in the studio again. So I had to make it up. But there you go. Glad you enjoyed it. Have we got anything more to say then about any more advice, any more mistakes, anything that people might need to know to help them through before we go?
No, I think that's it. It'll be a mistake if I don't turn up for a gymnastics competition at 12 o'clock. So I better go. But, no, we're local today, so my daughter's here locally doing a competition in Alarin. So
it's not you doing the gymnastics then?
No, I'd be doing the roly-poly if that was me.
So we could do a whole show on that.
Do a whole show. Let's do a whole show on that. It's
me
scary.
And you doing live gymnastics with Scats and Chris.
We should do that, because as part of your cancer recovery, I'm sure they're going to be having you doing some sort of exercise routine. That could be quite a funny video,
Yeah. Yes. Why not? Yeah. Let's take the mickey out of ourselves.
Who's wearing a leotard? I'm not wearing a leotard. Definitely not wearing a leotard.
What do you call those other ones, which is just cover you down there, and it's just got a what do you call them?
The Mr. Motivator style. That's what we get.
Yeah. Yeah. There's a whole new channel. I'd have to put that. Yeah. I'd have to put special warnings on it, I think.
I don't know how that fits in with me helping people with visas. It might put people off. Do you know what I mean?
You definitely need a psychiatrist for that channel.
Yeah. I'm going to go on a mission now to find a psychiatrist to get on. We're going to ask him all sorts of questions. I think it'd be a good idea.
Yeah, let's do it. So, anybody got any more questions on the live chat before we go? And while we're waiting for that to come through, let me just remind you that after we go off, Mankini, that's what it's called. Thank you, Barry. while we're waiting for more questions to come in, yes, if you have any questions or comments after we go offline, put them in the YouTube comments below, not on some random Facebook group, unless it's YouTooSpain's random Facebook group, because otherwise it won't help enough people. And that's a win-win-win with a cherry on top if you're helping loads of other people. Don't forget to smash the like button, everybody, and subscribe and click on the bell if you haven't already, and also float above this and do the donation, because I can't carry on doing gigs over the summer, although I'm doing my best. I'm going to try and fit some in between treatments, because I'm only going to be treated once every week or another week or something, and there'll be gaps when I think I might be fit enough, but we'll see what happens.
Take it easy. I know it's hard. It's easy for me to say, innit? Take it easy, but you know.
Yeah. I'm not very good at taking it easy, and my mate Mitch, who's my partner in the duo act that I normally go out under, which hasn't been able to perform this year, and I was supposed to be performing with him last week, but he had a heart attack the night before, so he's out of hospital now. He survived, fortunately, and that's why I did the gig last night on my own as well. But that meant that I was jumping around a lot more, because when I perform on my own, I'm the jefe, I'm the boss, so I'm in charge of making sure the audience enjoy themselves. So, and I do a lot more up-tempo stuff than I do when I'm with Mitch. We tend to do all of the sort of Simon and Garfunkel and stuff like that, where it's all really nice harmonies and soft and gentle. And he's in charge of the PA as well, so he doesn't turn it up very high. He says he likes people to, have a bit of background music and stuff. But when I'm up there, it ain't in the background; it's right in your face. So, yeah, there you go.
You did my daughter's birthday party, didn't you? And the Spanish loved it.
yeah, absolutely, and Laura's as well.
Laura's, yeah, of course. Yeah, they're asking for you back this year for the party. Yeah. My mate and Tony said, "Is your mate coming back? How is he? Is he fit?" I'm like, "Yeah, he's doing okay." So that's good. Let's hope he's fit for August again. I'm like, "Yeah, he'll be right."
Might be a bit tricky. We'll see if we can fit it in.
They loved it. If not, what we'll do, we'll play the video from last year, and you can come and just have a glass of wine with yourself.
Yeah, I can just mime. I'll sit in a chair and pretend. Yeah. There we go. And Barry says, "Scats in a mankini, the mind boggles." Yes. Excellent. And yes, staying alive to Mitch. Yes. Bon suerte. Buena suerte. There we go. So that's all the questions for now. And so before we find out what exciting guest I have on next week's show, if you were listening earlier, you'll know already. Let's say a huge thank you to Chris. Give him a massive virtual hug and a kiss. And we'll see you again in 2 weeks' time. When I think we've decided what we're talking about. For once, we're well in advance. We're going to be talking about all of the different taxes you can expect to pay here in Spain, including the sneaky stealth ones. So don't miss that. We both talked about tax last week and previously as well, specifically with Antonio the Hestor. But there's lots of other general taxes that you might not know about. So we'll just talk about those from the point of view of people living here, and I think that will be really exciting. And I'm sure we'll go off on a tangent again.
Never. Let's go off on a tangent. I wouldn't believe you'd say that in a million years.
Yeah, never happens. All right then, Chris. You get off into your put your mankini on and get ready for your gymnastics.
I'll send you a photo.
Fabulous. We'll definitely get banned from YouTube for that.
We would.
All right then. You take care, mate.
Take care. Speak to you. Bye.
Bye. There we go. So Barry says, watched a good film last night called El Correo, a Spanish film all about corruption in the 80s. What does El Correo mean? Correos is the postal service, isn't it? Be interesting. I'll have to look up the translation of that one. So, next week on the show, it's a first for YouTooSpain. As I said earlier, I'll be speaking to a vet all about bringing your pets to Spain and looking after them. There will be everything you need to know. And he's a very handsome vet too. Yes. So if you like that kind of thing, he's actually Italian. And he speaks several languages very well, including English, so he'll be able to answer all of your questions. He's actually, he works in our local vets here in Compton. Very nice bloke called Luca. And which reminds me, Lucca is one of my favourite places in Italy. We went there on holiday. Anyway, I'll stop rambling on. Don't forget, you can ask questions in advance on our Facebook page or the Facebook group or under any of the videos. Feel free to chat away. I say you can ask questions under any videos. Somebody asked on my video diaries about cancer, all about the non-lucrative visa, which was a bit strange answering people on that. It's always best to put your question under a relevant video, so not an irrelevant video, because there's just looking at what Barry's written there. Because then people will get the answers that they need. It's a win-win-win. And Barry says, did Luca live on the second floor? Yeah. Suzanne Vega. It's a song. Just in case anybody didn't get the joke there. Thanks once again then to everybody who's been on the live chat, and for all of you watching the video back afterwards. Thank you for joining us so much, and for leaving comments, hitting the like button, supporting us with donations and memberships. All of that is very much appreciated. And I will see you again either on the midweek video, which comes out on Wednesday evening at 5 o'clock, or on the video diary on Fridays, or live on Saturday mornings on this show at our regular time of 9 o'clock if you're in the UK or Ireland or Portugal or the Canaries, or 10 o'clock if you're in Spain or Central Europe. That is all for this week. Someone pass around the timing cookies, and peace and love to you all. Peas and fluff. Keep singing along. And here's one final message from all of the voices in my head at YouTooSpain. Take care. See you soon.
Goodbye, toodaloo, peace and love, peas and fluff, oi oi, don't do anything I wouldn't do.
One more cosmic dance?
Alright then, look mum, I'm dancing, oh, I'm all a quiver, let's dance.